Whether you're making an RPG game like Baldur's Gate or a platform game like Celeste, you are going to need a dialog box to display your dialogues. So it is very important to make a dialog box that you can use over and over again. So in this tutorial series, we're gonna work on making the ultimate dialog box. But for those of you who have not seen my tutorial before, this is not a simple how-to where you just simply copy and paste the code and be done with it. In my tutorial series, you will see a full process including the bugs, mistakes, and how I go about fixing them, and how I think about coming up with the solutions. That way, you learn how to build something out of nothing instead of just knowing how to solve a very specific problem. All right, with that out of the way, let's get to the tutorials. Hello. I have been getting a lot of questions on my dialogue plugin video. It's one of my more popular videos out there. I thought I put out a lot of the information there to kind of be able to apply some of the extra stuff that I don't specifically show, but it seems like there is enough confusion or question in general to have the need for me to answer. In fact, actually, for some of you guys, I've already invited you to my Discord channel, and then we have gone through a little video call for me to help you, which I love doing. I don't mind doing, but there have been enough repeats where I feel like I should probably make a video on that, right? And those are things like, how do I handle multiple characters if I use the dialogue plugin, or like how do I customize a dialogue box, and all those good things. So we're just gonna do a new series where I just do a deep dive on all things dialogue related in a game with Godot. As usual with my other series, I'm just going to do these kind of raw, where I try to go through different problem with a goal in mind and kind of show you the process of me solving this problem. I want this to be all things dialogue box, end all be all. Getting my little coffee to start. Hopefully this doesn't take too long. I have a few ideas in my head. I don't always know what I'm doing. So let's do dialogue box tutorial. Surprisingly, there's a lot of stuff to go over in the dialogue box. For example, how do you customize texture? In fact, right now, I know for a fact there is a big GMTK 2024 game jam upcoming in August, I want to say. And in preparation for that, I want to make some sort of generic solution where I can apply whatever I want so that I can quickly implement my dialogue without having to recreate dialogue box every time based on need. So there are a few things I can do to generalize that. So we're going to go over that today. New project called dialogue box tutorial. Create an edit. Very first thing I'm going to create is I'm going to create this 2D scene, right? And call this a dialog box. And we've done this before. We've been here before, and this dialog box, I'm just going to create a folder called dialog box in this project so I can easily copy and paste into other projects. And I'm going to just go ahead and save this under here, the dialog box scene. And I'm going to go ahead and attach the script for it. Right here, like that. And I'm gonna name its class as dialog box. All right, all these other things don't matter currently. The one thing that I wanna do here on the top is kind of define what kind of functions I want the dialog box to do. We wanna be able to say, hey, I wanna set text for the dialogue, right? And then I want to be able to set choices. Once the text gets set up, choices get set up, later I want to be able to select the choices, and that selection want to be bubbled up. So we're going to have some sort of signal that says choice selected. And then it'll give you the choice text that has been selected. This may change in the future, but I'm just kind of placing a placeholder with the concept. So this is like a kind of used as a comment where I'm just writing down all the things that I want this to do. And then this may change in the future when it comes to an actual implementation. So it doesn't matter. So what we have here is that we have some set text, we have set choices, and then we have choice selected signal. And then we're going to look at over here, again, into the 2D scene and decide what do we want in this dialog box, right? So I want to be able to change the background regardless of, you know, what the dialogue is. And I want this background to stretch based on the size I assigned the dialog box, right? So first thing, this is a UI component. And typically for UI, you want to use a control component as opposed to node like I did over here. So first thing I'm going to do, well, I keep saying first thing, but it's not actually a first thing. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look for some containers, right? Because UI components are control, and a lot of the UI components in Godot uses container in order to do these type of like flow restriction. That is like if you want to have margin, if you want to anchor a component into the center, left corner, right corner, that's, you know, where the container becomes useful. So I'm going to use just kind of generic container as a dialog box. Now that I changed the dialog box as a container, I have to go here and change this to be container as well. All right, and if you look at this property now, there's a thing called layout with the custom minimum, which can be set. And then under transform, you can see there's a pixel-based sizing. And then you can do anchoring, all that stuff, which is all nice. We're gonna make it so that whatever components that's underneath this dialog box, be it label, texture, or whatever, the background picture or whatever, is going to stretch to fit or doesn't stretch to fit. It's, you know, really based on how we want or how the user want this to be. So the next thing is this container will have probably some label as the text, right? So we got label, right? Which will be the text. And then we're gonna have some choices, right? If I say, hey, I'm gonna add choice A, choice B, I want the choice to be on its separate line saying 1 here, 2 here. It's not just gonna be a label, it's gonna be a label with highlightable components where you can highlight the choice and then you can select the choice. So we're going to create another component or scene called choice button, I've been calling it, but I'm going to create a scene called just dialog choice instead. Instead, I will manually choose some container, dialog choice. So we have a dialog choice scene here, and I'm not going to worry about the details yet. Obviously, it's going to have some text again, right? The choice shows up with some sort of text, and then it's going to have a bunch of like icon, ways to indicate how it's chosen and all that stuff, right? So we have the dialog box, and then we have the dialog choice. Okay, I'm pausing here because I have naming inconsistency where I have a scene with capitalization here like that, and I have a scene with underscore like that over here. So I'm gonna rename this to match the other pattern because this bothers me right now. All right, here we are. All right, so I have a dialog choice and I have a dialog box. Now the problem is the dialog choice, I want it to be, the box itself to be not the controller of the dialog choice style, right? Ideally, I want to be able to say, hey, here's what the dialog choice button looks like. Just kind of use it, whatever it is. Can you do that? And that is what I want to do. So when I'm dragging and dropping this dialog box from here to my project, I want to be able to say, hey, this is a scene that I'm using as a dialog choice. So that's what we're gonna do. So I'm gonna create an export here called dialog choice scene, which will be the source of truth, the resource for the, what do you call? Resource for the dialog choice. And by assigning a default, I'm giving it a default behavior. But once again, the goal is the user should be able to, when they drag this component in, they can just choose a different packed scene. Ideally, I can type this into a very specific thing, but you know, I'm gonna worry about that later once again. What else? What else? So we have the text. We want to be able to determine its style. Now, in a 2D world, or not even a 2D world, 3D world, doesn't matter. Dialog box tends to be 2D anyways. We want the background, the framing of the dialog box to be either a single box image that gets stretched, right, based on the sizing I want, or another way that, for example, like RPG Maker or even Unity, I think, does is it takes the box and divides it into an 8 section. And then basically the corners are frozen and everything in between is repeated based on the size to make it pixel perfect but stretch up and down. And that's another solution we can have. And I mean, it may or may not look ugly. So let's do that. Let's do both of them. So first I'm gonna go with the a single image dialog box texture that gets either stretched or fixed. So for example, let's create a sample dialog box here. So I'm gonna make it with 320 and height 300, for example. Oh, 300 is a little bit too much. I'll be right back. I'm just gonna create a simple dialog box that's meant to be stretched or whatever. So I have this dialog box that I'm meant to use as a single image. So first thing I'm going to test. So if there's anyone who's been following along my tutorial journey for other contents, I like to do things first and then figure things out. So reason I mentioned this right now is technically what I want to do here is probably set up some sort of export variable to allow users to insert their own texture. But in this scene, I want to test real quick like what it would look like, because I need to visually confirm first and figure out, hey, this is working, this is not working. These are the properties that I need to worry about before making it programmatic. So I like to insert this in first. So this is a whole process, and it's all about making the mistakes first and quickly so that you can arrive at the solution without having to handle a bunch of information in your head. Some of you, I'm sure, are capable perfectly to do all that. Me personally, from my experience, that has always been the best way to handle it. So, all right, this is a UI component, so there's different ways to do it. The problem with Sprite, using Sprite within a UI component like container, one is node. If you use anything that is child of a node within the container, it does not obey the container rule. For example, like centering, ordering, the flow, all those things goes out the window. And that may be okay, right? So if you're like, well, I don't care, I want it to be floating around. It's not part of the container, it's actually behind a container where it just kind of like floats around, then that's fine. If you want to use this texture as a container component, then you want to use texture rect. I'm going to go ahead and use the sprite 2D and say this is a background sprite. And I'm just going to drop this in real quick. So you can see right here, one, it's blurry. Go to texture and then change it to nearest. As you can see, it's now back to pixelated. Anyway, so we have this background sprite that I'm using as a sprite 2D, and as you can see, it just kind of sits here in the center at the 0, point, and it's ignoring the sizing of its container, where container is 0. So this is a good point to think about. What kind of behavior do I want with this background image? So a few things I want to decide on here as the client of this dialog box, right? The user of the dialog box, is that I want to be able to tell, hey, here's a source texture. So I want a source texture like this to be assigned to the dialog box. So we're going to have source background texture. And then I want that background to be obeying certain type of mode, right? So it'll be like, it's going to be a stretch mode, maybe stretch mode. And then that's gonna follow some sort of dialog stretch mode. And I'm going to define what these dialog stretch mode is here by assigning a enum called dialog stretch mode. As we're gonna have keep, which is to say keep the original size, or we're gonna say scale, which is scale the size of the image, or scale the image to distort it, like basically. Or we want to repeat it, right? We want to repeat the image over and over again. Or we want to make it so that it's a tile mode. And that is the mode that I'm thinking where it subdivides this texture into 8 different portions, and then it fixes the corner and then repeats the centers. So those are the 4 different modes of the stretch. Let's see if that worked right here. Okay, so we have this, and by default we're saying it's gonna do keep. Perfect. So we have ways to assign the background. We have ways to assign the stretch mode. Okay, so all these things are so far a option regarding the background texture. So I'm gonna give it a hint to group these things over here so it looks prettier. And we can do that by giving a export group, and then let's say background or dialog background, dialog box background. And if I do that, you can see right here, dialog box background information here. I might as well group this under export group, dialog, or choices. Choice. So we have choice related parameters, and then we have the background related parameters. I mean, dialog box is inferred already, so I'm just going to call this background. So we have texture, and then we have stretch mode. Cool. Do we need anything else? No, these are the only options that we require. So now we're going to implement all these different stretch modes. This I want to be able to see get implemented during this like editing mode, right? I want to drag and drop the dialog box onto my editor, and then if I change the stretch mode to scale, repeat, tile mode, I want this image to change on the spot. So we want to use tool tag so that it updates, the code runs during the editor time so I can see this image change. I'm gonna delete this now that I've seen it. See, didn't even do anything. That I didn't really use it to place anything. I just looked at it in order to inspire me to see, what do I need next? So the way I would drag and drop this texture up to here, and then I would say keep. So let's do keep first, since that's the simplest. I'm trying to think, I want to... All right, reason I'm pausing to think is because some of these mode changes, like the way the background shows up, the logic where I decide how the background shows up, do I do that as soon as these options are set? So I call those changes when the options are set, or do I continuously call it on every loop? And obviously calling it on every loop, and I go through this a lot, is less efficient, right? Because it's heavier, it's done every loop. And this is an option where it's permanent enough where I feel like I'm not expecting it to change in the middle of the run without going through set first. So I think we can afford to do these changes on set. Like when I say when on set, I mean when these variables are set up. Before I do all that, I'm going to create a function that says update dialog background, right? So this way I don't even have to worry about when I call it. I'm just going to call it when I need to. The logic is in this function. So we're going to have if, dialog stretch mode is keep. And thing about using enum is obviously I can use a switch, and I think I discovered last time in GDScript they don't call it switch, they call it switch in GDScript. They call it match. So every time I do switch versus if in programming, I always make this comment. Well, switch is faster than if in most cases for a lot of the compile time programming language, right? Because the way they implement switch, if you go down to the assembly and then the machine code is just taking the difference between the variable and then makes a jump. So it's like a simpler math that is built into the line, as opposed to if is like, oh, it takes the processing of the conditional statement, it needs to evaluate it, and then comes to it, and then does the math to the address jump. So if you understand that, you know that it's a less number of instruction to use switch versus if you can get it down to using a switch. But I have a feeling the GDScript doesn't discriminate that much, so there is actually no performance advancement, especially because if you start doing stuff like you can do switch on string, or you can do switch on things that are not integer, then I have a feeling where it's like, oh, maybe it's not that efficient. But for the principle of the pattern, typically when you're using enum, when you're differentiating functions based on different enum, I'm trained to use switch, and it just makes me feel happier, so I'm going to use switch here, which is a match. You guys don't have to do it, just write if then if you want. So I'm going to do match, and we're going to have dialog stretch mode keep here, and it's going to have something. And then I want one for each of the 4 enum values. So we got scale here, we got repeat here, and then we got tile mode here. And besides tile mode, all of these are actually pretty simple, because if you look at the sprite again, so if I come here and then add a texture rect to test, and then I just put this down, and you can see right here, it already has expand mode. Keep size, fit width, fit height, stretch mode is scale, tile. What does that do? Oh, okay. So tile is a repeat. All right, cool. So you can see right here, if I do texture rect, it already has a stretch mode in it with a bunch of options. And basically, what we have here is a subgroup of what's available over here. So between stretch mode and expand mode, how I should expand versus how I should stretch, between these two, you should be able to do 3 of these. And then the tile mode is the only thing that I need to actually worry about programmatically, right? So if you look at it right here, if I do a little bit of a test, let's say I increase the size, and then I say minimum is like, let's say 1,000 width. Right now, it's using expand mode. So for example, if I use keep size and then I do custom minimum size, if I change the minimum size, it's forced to stretch it. You can see it's using a scale here. If I do tile, basically it repeats it. And if I do keep, it ignores the size command. And then if I do scale, it stretches it. So we got scale, tile, and then keep. Already, that's all we need to do. And then all we gotta do to control the sizing is control the what they call custom minimum size. And that's all we have to do. So easy. All right, we want a texture rect. That is probably a background texture. Call it background texture. And then we're gonna do it on ready. Background texture, which is a texture rect. And background texture rect. And then when we are updating, we're gonna set its texture to be the background texture, right? So we are first doing this part. We are assigning it. We're going to set its stretch mode. Set stretch mode to be when it's keep, do stretch keep. When it's scale, I want it to be stretch scale. And then when it's repeat, I want it to be a tile. Simple enough. And then let's call this. Now I have this update dialog background thing. Let's see if I call it in set here. So for example, I'm testing something here. I don't know if the setter little keyword gets triggered on the editor property change or not. So we'll see. So I'm gonna call update dialog plugin or background right here, like that. I don't know if I need to indent it differently. Oh, set stretch mode, like that. Or value, let's say. If I do value, stretch mode equals value, and then it'll do this. All right. So the idea is right here, if I change the stretch mode, or I gotta reload first actually, because I haven't reloaded since the tool got added, the tool tag, it might not take effect. So let me reload the project first and see if it breaks, which is a big possibility. I break things all the time, but it's okay. All right, we have it here. Cannot be called set texture on a null value. Oh, what's the null value? In line 32, it's saying that this background texture rect. Oh, right. I need to do this. There you go. I didn't assign the thing, so we'll reload again. Boom. All right, let's see. So repeat didn't work. Keep, scale, repeat. Nice. Tile mode obviously doesn't do anything, but you can see that it's assigning the different mode when I change it. So this is being triggered right here whenever the stretch mode value updates. And we want to do the same here. When background texture is being updated, I want to also call update background so that the image can change. So for example, if I drop this right here, which doesn't have any texture, and then let's say I'm gonna drop this again. Let's delete this, clear. Obviously, if it's empty, it's gonna freak out. We're gonna have to fix that. And I drop it in. Oh, all right, the code is broken, that's why. It says indentation. Oh, whoops. Forgot the colon here. All right, hopefully this will work now. So if I clear this, does that do anything? Doesn't break anything, nice. It doesn't call anything, cool. And then I set this right here, boom. All right. Sweet. Okay, so it's working. Now we're gonna do the next thing, which is subdivide the texture into 8 portions and then lock the corners and repeat the middle. I wanted to actually assign as well the minimum sizing based on the size of the container. So I'll say background texture rect and its minimum size, set minimum size. It probably, or can I set it? Minimum size. Update minimum size. Okay. Can I update that? Invalidates the size cache in this node and in parent node up to top level intended to be used with get minimum size. When the return value is changed, setting custom minimum size directly calls the method automatically. Okay, so I could also set it directly, or I could update minimum size this way. So I'm gonna just set it directly, custom minimum size, and then I'm going to set it to the size of the container, which is the one that it's sitting on. And I think this should actually happen whenever the dialog box size changes. So I think the sizing part, all right, let me explain this real quick. The texture of the dialog background and also the stretch mode of the dialog background is being assigned by the user or program to call it directly, right? But then the size itself is not controlled by any of the components that are here. It may change for any reason because it's a container. And I want to be actively checking on that size constantly. So I think I want to do the size related changes on the loop, which is the process. So if I say, during the loop, I want to make sure that the background texture rect's custom minimum size is equal to the dialog box's size, which is under, I believe, size? Yeah, which is a vector 2 as well. So it's going to just follow that. So if we reload this, project setting, or not project setting. So if I reload this project, hopefully it won't break, but it'll just work. So the container right now is size of 0. It should have worked, but it didn't. And there's an error that says cannot call method set texture on null value. So let's take a look. So on 35 on reload, it thought this was null. It may have to do with the order in which these scenes are being set up, because it thinks that this was null and this is being assigned on ready, and onReady gets called when the component gets added to the scene tree. So it is possible, depending on the order, right? Because dialog box gets created first and added to the scene before the texture rect is being added, or yeah, edit. So maybe that this assignment happened before this. So when the dialog box gets created, the background texture rect doesn't exist, which I don't think that's how it works. If I understand the kind of the stack order of Godot engine, I believe it executes the ready for children component first. So it is kind of weird. I'm gonna check if the size is changed. Oh yeah, minimum size has changed to 0. I guess I should do ignore size by default. All right, well, if I set it to ignore size, then it works, it seems. Weird. Full rect. Yeah, it's working. All right, well, it's working, I guess. This error is gonna annoy me though. So let me try to resolve that real quick. Set background texture. Let's do this on the set, like so. Yeah, okay, so I moved it so that the setting of the texture rect happens here. Let me reload and see if it still throws that. I mean, it's going to be the same situation, but we'll see. Yeah, see? Cannot call method set texture on null value, set stretch mode on null value. Oh, it's going to annoy me. Do I just ignore that this happens since it works anyways? I mean, this definitely has to do with when the project is loading, the order in which some of these things get executed, the export variable versus the onReady variables. And that's why this is happening. And it's like saying, hey, this thing that you're trying to call doesn't exist yet. And then later it calls it again and then makes it work. Anyways. I don't like this. I don't like this. You know what? I'm just going to make it so that I'm going to move it back to the update dialog background here. And only do this if background texture rect is not null. If it's null, just ignore it. And this only happens in the beginning anyway, so I'm gonna just do a null check in the beginning of this thing so I can avoid this error. Reload current project. Because otherwise it's working. Nice. All right, it's fixed. Let me reload with everything empty. Or the setup. Make it so that the setup is 0. And then I'm going to, what do you call? Empty this out. Clear. And then make it keep. Reload. All right, no error. And then I'm gonna be like, hey, use this. Oh, cool. I wanna scale it. Oh, right, the size is 0. Let's make it full rect. Sweet. All right. And then I can also be like, actually, I don't like it this size. I'm gonna make it like 500, 400. How about 200? And then this will do this like that. Next thing, I think there is a way to also scale with aspect ratio, where you keep aspect ratio. So let's do that as well. I'm gonna add one more mode, because that's another stretch mode, where I say scale aspect. That is to say, scale while keeping the aspect ratio. So I'll add that right there. Dialog, stretch mode, scale aspect. So far easy. I'm just using already existing stretch, keep aspect. Already existing functions, which is not too difficult. All right, next thing. All right, we were really gonna get to the, wait, what? Why is this? Oh, okay. Well, I don't know. Maybe I spelled something wrong. Yeah, I don't know why there was an error there. Anyways, I want to make a tile mode now. So how should we approach this, right? I think the way I'm thinking, because remember, the texture rect already has some of these functionalities. What I want to do is I want to do a keep on the corners, right? So I need to divide the texture first into 8 portions, and then do a keep on the corners, and then do a tile everywhere else. So that's what we're gonna do here. So let's see, how are we gonna do that? Ugh, I don't actually know. This is the way I show how I resolve problem and find solutions to a problem. So I'm just going through this just like you right now to figure it out. Ooh, okay, Future Ezra here. So during my live session, after having recorded this video, I was showing off a little bit of what's to come. And some of the viewers out there, which I wish I could credit right now because I can't remember the names top of my head, has pointed out something very interesting. So I'm about to show you in this video what is called a 9-patch rect. Implementation of penneling so that you can scale the box without having to warp and distort the pixels, right? I've actually done it manually. I've figured out how to implement it with the kind of like the fundamental building blocks that are provided. Interestingly enough, Godot already has a implementation that allows you to do this a little bit easier. So I'm recording this right now to include the easier way so you can see it. After that, I'm gonna hand it over to Past Ezra again to still show you how I did it from ground up to implement that. While it's not the most efficient or effective, there are some interesting information that I ran across throughout the implementation of it, so I still want to keep that there. But before you guys follow along and then only to find out, wow, there's a lot easier way to do it, I'm cutting myself off here to show you the easier way first so that the later part can be just like for your information only. So let's get to it. Let's see if I can adjust this. All right. How's it look? I think we're good here. All right, so let's get to it. I've gone through a lot to reset the project here. So basically, 9-patch rect. If you know that term, which I didn't know before, you would find out very quickly how to implement it. So what you do is you add a child, and then you look for something called 9-patch rect. And here you would normally put the texture down. And then you would decide the patch margin. So we know we wanna decide how much of the texture, this original texture, is considered left to decide the column, the first column, and how much of this you need to go from the most right to a pixel amount to determine the third column, right? So that's what this is. And the texture I'm using here is 300, so the left would be 100, and then the right as well, because 300. And from the top, with the 100 height, if you divide it by 3, it's actually 33.333333. So if you do 33 from the top, 33 from the bottom, the midsection will be 34, but it'll have this type of shape, right? Now what we want to do is that we want this rect to change in its size based on the size of the dialog box, right? It's actually really tiny here. So I would go to the script real quick. And I have been doing the sizing over here on the process, so let's do that same thing here. So I'm gonna go here, make onReady var, let's call it 9-patch rect, and then just kind of drag this in right here. Come over here in the script where I was changing the minimum size of the background texture. I'm going to just set 9-patch rect property, custom minimum size, and then that size will equal to the size of the dialog. Right now it's breaking because once again I just put this onReady in, and the scene tree has been already loaded, so it didn't have, as far as the engine is concerned, it didn't have the opportunity to set the value for this, so it thinks this value is null or nil. So I'm going to reload the project. No error, cool, and then the sizing is probably taking effect. So you can see right here, the 9-patch rect is getting stretched based on the size of the dialog box. Now you can see that it's still stretching, so we need to fix that. If you go to this axis stretch setting, there's tile fit, and then there's a tile. Tile is where it just indiscriminately tile it up, the middle section that is considered centerpiece. Tile fit makes it so that if you have this like awkward sizing where there might be a gap, if you just purely stack these things up, they try to stretch it to fill that gap, I think. So let's see if we can do not perfect replica, but just kind of like weird increments. So instead of 400, 200, let's do 425, 125, and see what that does. Like, it doesn't look too bad, but there is this like weird slight stretch in the center bit. And that's what tile fit does, I think. If you do tile, you can see that it just repeats perfectly. So I think I prefer tile. So I'll do tile here. And voila! Now you have a 9-patch rect style background. So now that I have the 9-patch that can do this, I'm not done yet. Remember, I wanted to set this value to this 9-patch rect when I set it, instead of doing it manually. So I'm going to go to the dialog box and go back to the setter, and you see there's an update dialog background feature here. Actually, before I do that, I'm gonna zero out all these information right here. I'm gonna get rid of the texture. I'm gonna get rid of the texture here too, so I can see that it's working. For the debugging purposes, I'm gonna set the custom minimum size to something like 500 and 300. It keeps increasing, I know, so that when I go from scale, where it stretched things out, to tile mode, you can see the difference. So I'm gonna set it to scale for now. Go back to the script, and if you go look at the update dialog background, this is where we were doing different modes. I'm gonna go to tile mode. So we have two separate texture rects here, right? So for keep, scale, scale aspect, and repeat, we wanna use background texture rect. So what we wanna do here is that for both of these texture rect, I actually wanna set the visibility to false. 9 patch rect as well. 9 patch rect, visible equals false. And then actually for the most part, it'll be true. So I'll keep true here, and then 9 patch rect to false. And when the tile mode gets turned on, I want 9 patch rect to be visible, and then turn off the background texture. Visible equals false. Cool. And not only that, now I need to assign those things, right? So I need to create or assign the values to this 9 patch rect. So first thing I want to do is 9 patch rect texture will equal to the texture that's assigned to the export variable, which is background texture here, right? Or we can use setter. You can even do set texture just like the one above here. Maybe we don't need to do this here. We can do it where other textures are being set. Nice. And then we gotta set these patch margin. I'm gonna leave so I'm gonna turn this off because these are gonna be assigned programmatically. But axis stretch, we wanna keep it a tile. So I'm gonna just leave this here as a property value as tile by default. And what I'm gonna do here is try to set the patch margin left, top, and right. Now, left and right will be 1/3 of the width. So all I have to do is get the width of the original texture. So we got background texture, get width. Oh shoot, by the way, this might break here because I remember now, I had set the background texture type to be texture. If you do that, like texture can be any mode, so the dimensionality of the 2D might be missing. So you want to change this to texture 2D on the background texture so that you can get this get width. And it's going to be background texture width divided by 3 will be the column margin, right? Column being like this. And then let's floor this so that it's rounded down. And then the row margin, which is like this, will be floor of background texture. Oops. Oh, what did I just press? F11. No. Pretty sure my editor just went to full screen mode. I don't know how to change that. Project. How do I come out of this? How do I come out of this full screen mode? Hold on. Let me just restart the engine. All right, hey, I'm back. Okay, cool. All right, so I'm going to do floor, background texture, get height, divide by 3. And then we have column margin and row margin, so let's set that up. We want the 9 patch rect margin, right? Patch margin left to be column margin. And we also want its right margin to be column margin. And we want the top to be row margin. And then bottom, so let me copy this real quick. Patch margin bottom will be row margin as well. So those values will be set when I switch over to tile mode, and then it should be all good. So before I do it, let me reload real quick. Man, cars are really loud outside. Hopefully you guys can't hear that. Right here, if I change to tile mode, it worked. Look. So I think it's working. Look at that. You will see what I ended up doing and see that this is much simpler than what I did. But once again, we learn from our mistakes. So do watch if you would like to see that. Otherwise, you can skip over to the end. That's that. I'm going to toss it back over to the Pest Ezra. So enjoy. I want to split the texture into 8 equal parts. 9 equal parts. There's 9 portions in this whatever texture I end up getting, right? So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the texture and I'm going to make a function where I basically tile background, because I think it's going to be complicated and I want it to be a standalone function. And then we're going to make 9 texture portions. So we have tiled textures, which will be an array of texture. And it's going to be a very specific 9 portions of it, which will be, I think you can actually cut up texture actively. Basically, we're going to need 9 texture rects, right? And I can do that programmatically and say, hey, I'm going to create it programmatically when I need it and then apply it. But thing is, like, it's going to be there all the time. Might as well keep it here. Just make it invisible, right? So we can say control make a group called tiled background. And then we can add 9 texture rects here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oops. And what are the components, right? We have left top corner, top line. And I don't even need to call it corner, right? I can say left top. We have the top. We have the right top. And then I'm going in scan line. So we have the left line. We have center, right, left, bottom, the bottom. And we have the right, bottom, right? Cool. Instead of having it in array, I'm just gonna have all of them. Left top. Oops. We got a left top here. We got top. We got center. Anyways, we're gonna fast forward this in the edit real quick. Right. I don't know if there's any other way to do this, but basically I want to be able to take the sprite or take this texture and then regionalize it, right? And then the way they do this is by using something called a atlas texture, where I use the sprite or the texture itself as a atlas, like the map, and then take the subsection of it. So for example, if I look at this left top right here, and if I add a new atlas texture, I can assign the atlas to be this thing, and I can give it a region. So if I edit region, I could be like, ooh, like that. And you can see that this is the new texture now for this particular texture rect. So this is what I want to use. That means I want to create 9 different atlas texture for it that uses that same texture. So let's do that. So first thing I want to do here is that I want to create a atlas texture. Atlas texture new. And then I'm going to assign this atlas to be the texture that I'm using, right? Background texture. And then I want to assign a region, right? Atlas to have region. And the way the region is set is a rectangle object. So I'll say set region, and it will be some sort of rect2, which takes in position and its size. So 9 different portions of it. So position would be 0, 0 from the top, right? Which is a vector 2, 0, 0. And I'm gonna clean this up afterwards. And then the size would be, width will be 1, 2, 3. So width divided by 3, texture's width divided by 3, background texture width, or if I can get the width from it, get size. Can I get a texture size somehow? All right, I think it needs to be texture 2D. It's definitely a texture 2D. I'm gonna do texture 2D. Texture itself can be anything, so I'm gonna update this to texture 2D. So it has some of the 2D dimensional properties. So we're gonna get the width divided by 3. So we're gonna have some things like tile size will be vector 2 of background texture width divided by 3, and then we're gonna also have background texture get height divided by 3. So what this vector 2 versus vector 2i does is that vector 2i is integer version of the vector. So I'm forcing the result of the size to be an integer, right? So we got the tile size here. Perfect. And this will be the first one. This will be the top left atlas. And then same thing, we want another atlas that is a different region. And see, I could copy this multiple times and call it different things. And it's a 3-liner. I'll make a function that says atlas with region, and then I provide position. For example, like region position, like this, where it returns a atlas texture, like that. And then I can make it do this. Is this worth it? Maybe. Maybe it's worth it to clean up the code like this. So we have atlas region thing. Why is it breaking? Oh, it needs to close the parentheses like this. And then it wants me to close here. Okay. So for example, if I do this, then all I have to do is for top left, I call right here with a vector 2 of 0, 0 is a top left. And then I'll do top ls will be ls with region with a new position where it's probably tile size over, right? Tile size x, right? Because the tile size is x, so I want to move it over by x amount, tile size amount. And 0, top right atlas will be tile size x, one more times 2, so on and so forth. All right, so we have all the atlas region that we need. Tile size. Sure, I'll give it a tile size as well. Like so. And then I'll just, tile size will be given. I'm just adding tile size to the parameter for each one of them because I forgot to do that. And it might yell at me. Let's see. All right, cool. So we have all the atlas, and that means we want to assign this atlas to each one of these things. That should be easy enough, right? We got left top, text. All right, my camera is too hot. That's why I turned off. So I'm going to Let's see. I'm going to take a break. Oh, you know what? You don't need my face. I've done this before. But let me do this real quick. So we have left top with texture equals top left. And obviously, I could make it even shorter by doing just this, by directly doing it. I don't like it. I like having variable line. So let's say if something is wrong here, I can separate these two lines as opposed to being a single line. That's my little habit I have, and it does help out debugging process later. Nothing special here. I'm just going through each line and then grabbing the textures for each portions and assigning it to this node. All right, so all the textures have been set up, and next thing I need to do is I need to position these things onto a proper spot, right? One thing I need to make sure I do here is that I'm gonna go through these properties and preset up their scale and expand mode. So if you remember, what we want is actually keep its size for the corners. For the top portion, we are keeping its size, and then we're tiling it. For the right type, we're keeping its size and then keeping itself. For the left, keep size, tile. For center, tile. Right is also tile. Left bottom is keep. Bottom is tile. And then right bottom corner is keep, right? The corners are keep. Everything else is a tile. Now, we gotta make it so that the position of the corners are at the extremes of the square, right? So we have, if we set the size to be full rect, for example, like this, instead of stretching it like this, we want these things to be positioned in those locations. And I think we could just like do a flow on this. So for example, if I set this up to be a flow with 0 margin. So let's change this type of control. We want it to be a grid container because it actually is a grid, right? And then we want 3 columns. And you can see all these things are lined up like this beautifully. And then I want them to have minimum sizing that is same as the parent. So same thing here. I'm gonna go to the script, and then I want the tiled background sizing right here. Custom minimum size to be same as the size, right? Like so. And all we need to do now is change the size of the middle component, right? So like, for example, the top, or left top will be the same, but the top should be the minimum size of whatever it needs to be. Just for the sanity of being able to see the texture is correct, I'm going to call the tile background over here when the tile mode is activated. And then we're going to make tile background visible equals true. Otherwise, I think it just needs to be like that. True, like so. I'm gonna reload the project real quick. If I do tile mode, you can see right here already. It's kind of working. Oh, right is missing something. The idea is there. So we got the right one here. Position is twice the X, Y, and then this tile size. Oh, right. See, this is wrong. We're already catching bugs. Okay. So this, if I do the mode again, scale, and then tile mode, you can see it. All the tiles are there. And then I wanna make it so that the grids don't have a margin for spacing. Is there a spacing? I want the separation to be 0. There you go. Cool. And then I want to make sure the stretch mode is keep. Cool. And then the top, I want it to have custom size or custom minimum size that fills the rest. Does that work actually if I just do this? Oh my gosh, it does work. I don't need to change anything. Okay, that's crazy. So if I do fill mode on these stretch components. Wait, shouldn't it tile though? Why is it not tiling? Hello? Wait, I thought I was gonna tile it. Why is it not tiling it? All right, I'm gonna make it so that there's some indicator. So I'm gonna put some dots to see if there is an indication of tiling or stretching, right? If it's stretching in any direction, this should make it very obvious that there is a stretch. All right. So you see right here, you see already all these stretching that's happening in the middle section. So we're gonna have to figure this out. All right, well, you know what? This is as good as any. I'll be back with the solution because I actually need to go. But yeah, theoretically, this is how you would do it. It's not working right now, so, you know, I'm lost at words. I'll be back. Okay, I'm back. I figured it out. So if you see right here on the screen, something that I noticed, this is a bug in Godot, which I feel like I should file it, or maybe somebody knows it already because I searched online. Okay, let me just show you real quick. As you can see, it's working right now, and then you probably notice right here, if I click it, it's not an Atlas anymore. So it turns out when you use Atlas texture, tile mode doesn't work. It just doesn't. And it's not clear why, but some of the solutions that was suggested is basically, here's my script. So on the tile mode, I do tile background, and then we did this where we were using Atlas with region function that we created right here. And you can see right here, I create the Atlas like I did last time, and then I assign the background texture, which is the whole texture, and then I set the region, which is the same like last time. But before we returned right here, right? Where we were returning a Atlas texture. But instead, we're extracting that section as a image texture. So right here, you can see I'm creating a new image texture, and I'm creating it from the image I got from that Atlas. So I'm doing one more conversion so that the returned texture is no longer a Atlas texture with the subsection of the sprite. It is now copy of that subsection into a real image by standalone so that the tiling works. So you can see right here, I do the same thing. Now the TL Atlas, top Atlas, whatever, the same name. I'm doing the same thing where I'm assigning the texture. Nothing changed. And it's now working where I do the sections right here like this. So you can see, I'm not sure if I did this last time. I'm making sure the left top corner, so all the corners are keep right here on the stretch mode. So we have left top keep, right top keep, left bottom keep, and right bottom keep. And everything else needs to be tile mode, right? So we have top that is tile, so it's tiling this way. And then just like last time, I think I went over it, you want to expand horizontally. Left, you want to expand vertically here, so tile, and then it's expanding it that way. Center, you're expanding both way. Right, you're expanding vertically. Bottom, you're expanding horizontally, right? And then we can test this by changing the size. So right now we have width 500, we can do width 1000, and you can see it's still tiling like this. And then I can change this to 200, 200. And you can see right here, left top corner, top is tiling this way, right top left to like this. I think there's one caveat. If I use, so here's original background is 300 by 100. I wonder what happens if it's smaller than that. So if I do 150, right, there's a minimum size, as you can see. It doesn't get any smaller than the original size. That's something we want to change, or maybe we don't need to. The idea is when I'm using it, I just need to be aware that I should use the original background texture to be a lot smaller than this, right? Because if I'm intending to use a tile mode anyways, why make it so big, right? Unless you want that pattern to be included. So we have that here. Once again, we got the tile mode, we got the keep, we got the scale, which scales it down. Scale with aspect keeps the aspect ratio. Repeat makes it so that it repeats with the original size. So we have, if I do 2000 by 300, you can see that it repeats. And then of course, if I do tile mode, it takes the corners, fix it, and everything else gets repeated. So you have this non-stretched pixel. I'm gonna keep this code up here for a little bit just in case I made some changes that off screen that you guys are not aware of. I'm pretty sure only thing I did was this and then change the tile map. Yeah, I think that's good. So we have a dialog box that takes in the background texture and then allows me to change the stretch mode so I can do background. And then of course I have a text where I'm going to write some label right here, right? Sample text here. Of course it's there's a Z order, so I'm gonna drag it down here to make it show up. I'm looking forward to making some changes that makes this the ultimate dialog box, because this is not enough, right? On the next episode, I plan to create functions like set text, set choices. Most important thing I think a lot of people are curious about is text animation. If you have any other questions regarding what we did today or any comments, please put that in the comments. And of course, I'm going to continue developing and making tutorials for this ultimate dialog box. So if you see any features that you want that nobody else is talking about, let me know so I can include that feature in this tutorial series so that we can share the knowledge with everyone. That's it, and thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.